Have you ever been so hangry that you feel like you could start a war? Well, what if I told you that a real war, with armies and cannons, was almost started over a sausage? No, I'm not kidding. This is the wild, almost unbelievable story of the Pig War, also known as the Sausage War of 1859. Our story takes place on a tiny, windswept island called San Juan, nestled between what is now Washington State in the U.S. and Vancouver Island in Canada. Back in the mid-19th century, both the United States and Great Britain claimed this island. It was a classic case of I saw it first, but with two global powers. American settlers and British employees of the Hudson's Bay Company lived there side by side, but it was less friendly neighbors sharing a cup of sugar and more awkward roommates who really do ain't like each other. The tension was as thick as the local fog. The Americans were farmers, homesteaders trying to carve out a new life. The British were there for the fur trade, running a massive sheep ranch for the Hudson's Bay Company. The Americans resented the powerful British company, and the British saw the American squatters as a nuisance. All it would take was one tiny spark to set the whole thing off. That spark, as it turned out, came in the form of a pig. On June 15, 1859, an American farmer named Lyman Cutlar woke up and went out to check on his potato patch. To his dismay, he found a large black pig happily munching away on his prized spuds. Now, this wasn't the first time. This particular pig, owned by a British employee of the Hudson's Bay Company named Charles Griffin, had a reputation for being a repeat offender. Cutlar had complained before, but nothing had been done. This time, Lyman Cutlar had had enough. In a fit of frustration, he grabbed his rifle, took aim, and shot the pig. The potato thief's reign of terror was over. Cutlar, probably feeling a bit of remorse, immediately went to Charles Griffin's home to apologize and offer to pay for the pig. He offered $10, which was a fair price. But Griffin, insulted and angry, demanded an outrageous $100. For reference, that would be like thousands of dollars today. Cutlar scoffed, saying he wouldn't pay that much for any pig, and that his potatoes were worth more than that anyway. The argument escalated, and negotiations broke down completely. Word of the incident spread like wildfire. The British authorities, seeing this as an act of aggression against British property, threatened to arrest Cutlar. The American settlers, fearing for Cutlar's safety and tired of being pushed around, immediately sent a plea for military protection to the mainland. They didn't just want a sheriff, they wanted the U.S. Army. And the U.S. Army answered. The commander of the Department of Oregon was a man named General William S. Harney. General Harney was known for being, shall we say, a bit hot-headed and not exactly a fan of the British. Seeing a chance to assert American dominance, he didn't hesitate. He dispatched Captain George Pickett. Yes, that George Pickett, who would later become famous for his disastrous charge at the Battle of Gettysburg, with a company of 66 soldiers to San Juan Island. Pickett and his men landed on the island and set up camp right near the Hudson's Bay Company's sheep ranch, essentially staring them down. Pickett declared the entire island to be U.S. property. This, as you can imagine, did not go over well with the British. The British governor of British Columbia, James Douglas, was furious. He saw this as a full-blown American invasion. He immediately dispatched 3 British warships, armed to the teeth with cannons and marines, to the waters around San Juan Island. The flagship, HMS Tribune, was a powerful frigate. Suddenly, a tiny dispute over a pig had escalated into a serious military standoff. On one side, you had Captain Pickett and his small band of American soldiers, who had dug in and built fortifications, vowing to make a Bunker Hill of it. On the other side, you had the might of the Royal Navy, with over 1,000 men and more than 60 cannons pointed directly at the American camp. The British commander, Rear Admiral Robert L. Baines, was ordered by Governor Douglas to land his Marines and drive the Americans off the island. This was the moment of truth. One wrong move, one itchy trigger finger, and the United States and Great Britain, 2 of the world's most powerful nations, could have been plunged into their third war. And it all started because a pig couldn't resist some tasty potatoes. But this is where the story takes a turn from tense to almost comical. Rear Admiral Baines, a seasoned and sensible officer, looked at the situation. He saw the American soldiers, outnumbered but determined. He saw his own overwhelming firepower. And he thought, are we really going to start a war over a pig? He famously declared that he would not involve two great nations in a war over a squabble about a pig. He refused the order to attack. News of the standoff eventually reached Washington, D.C. and London. Politicians on both sides were horrified. They had no idea this was happening and certainly didn't want a war. President James Buchanan sent a top general, Winfield Scott, to de-escalate the situation. General Scott, a veteran of the War of 1812, was a much calmer presence than General Harney. He sailed to the island and met with Governor Douglas. Together, they brokered a truce. The agreement was simple and, honestly, a bit strange. Both the U.S. and Britain would maintain a joint military occupation of the island, with each side allowed no more than 100 men. And so began one of the most peaceful military occupations in history. The American camp, or American Camp, was established on the south end of the island, while the English camp was set up on the north end. For the next 12 years, these soldiers lived in close proximity. Instead of fighting, they became friends. They celebrated holidays together, visited each other's camps for dinners and parties, and even held sports competitions. It was said that the biggest threat on the island was not the opposing army, but the amount of alcohol consumed at their joint celebrations. The soldiers essentially turned a military standoff into a 12-year-long camping trip with their international buddies. They passed the time with routine drills, building roads, and enjoying the island's natural beauty. The tension that had brought them there had completely evaporated, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. So what happened to the island? Well, the pig issue remained unresolved for over a decade. Finally, in 1871, the U.S. and Britain agreed to let a neutral third party decide the island's fate. They turned to Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany to act as the arbitrator. The Kaiser appointed a three-man commission, and after a year of reviewing the old treaties and maps, they ruled in favor of the United States in 1872. The border was officially drawn through the Haro Strait, placing the San Juan Islands firmly in U.S. territory. The British gracefully accepted the decision. The Royal Marines packed up their camp, held one last farewell party with their American friends, and sailed away. The Pig War was officially over, and the only casualty, thankfully, was the pig that started it all. Today, you can visit San Juan Island National Historical Park, which preserves both the American camp and the English camp. You can walk the fields where this bizarre international incident unfolded and see the peaceful shores where two global powers almost went to war over a barnyard animal. It stands as a powerful and slightly hilarious reminder that diplomacy and a cool head are often the best weapons we have. And it proves that sometimes, the most absurd events in history can teach us the most important lessons about conflict and resolution. So the next time you're in a disagreement, just remember the pig war. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this really worth starting a war over? Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the weird and wonderful corners of history. Let me know in the comments what historical event you'd like to see next. See you in the next video.